Good afternoon, welcome back. It is Friday, September 29th. I can't believe we've only got one more day after today left in the month of September. It has went by really, really fast, which means we've only got 3 more months to squeeze in the rest of our birthdays and events, and then this series will be over. So anyway, let's start with our events like we always do. And this is going to take a minute because there's about 6 events here. Back in 1974, on this date at Martinsville, Earl Ross wins his first and only Cup Series race as a rookie, and he becomes the first Canadian to win a Cup Series race. On this day in 1985, Harry Gant wins at North Wilkesboro. The bigger part is it's kind of funny how this works, and we'll get to the next event in a minute, but this would be the last win for Mach 1 Motorsports, and it would be the final win for Harry Gant for nearly 3.5 years till he won in the spring race at Darlington driving for the Jackson brothers in 1989. Now we moved to 1991. That race started a bad streak for Harry. The next one stopped a good streak for Harry, as in 1991 on the state at North Wilkesboro, Dale Earnhardt wins, passing Harry Gant with about 9 laps to go after Gant's brakes failed because of basically a 50-cent part. And if Gant would have won, he would have won 5 straight, becoming the first driver, and so far the only driver in NASCAR's modern era to have won 5 straight races. So it's kind of funny how 2 different events on the same day started or stopped different streaks for Harry in good or bad ways. On this day at 1996, prior to this year's running of the All-Star race, this would be the last Cup Series race held at North Wilkesboro, won by Jeff Gordon that day. On this day in 1997, Martinsville moved to this date. It didn't really replace Wilkesboro on the schedule, just kind of got shuffled around a little bit with the dynamic of having Texas and a second Loudon race. But Martinsville, Jeff Burton wins after Rusty Wallace jumped a late race restart, was black flag, ignore the black flag. He did get fined by NASCAR, and if I remember reading correctly, back in the day, Rusty actually paid his fine with pennies. They had a Brinks truck or one of the armored trucks pull up to the NASCAR plate, the trailer or whatever at Charlotte, and there was publicity photos of Wallace handing the NASCAR officials bags of pennies, so I thought that was pretty funny. And on this day in 2018, at the Roval, Chase Briscoe wins his first career Xfinity Series race, driving that number 98 Stewart-Haas. It was kind of a combination of Stewart-Haas-Biaggi team at the time, but of course now it's Stewart-Haas with Riley Herbst driving. So I have 2 birthdays to talk about real quick here. Born on this date in 1983, and looking at these cards from 2003, this was literally half his life ago. Chase Montgomery. He's kind of a Busch Series driver, ARCA driver, kind of a developmental driver, just never did have his career take off. And there you see he did have Alice Cooper Montgomery Racing, and that is the heavy metal artist Alice Cooper that was a co-owner of their racing team there in the ARCA Series. I want to say he did win an ARCA race at Daytona, but I might be thinking of somebody else. And our other birthday, born on this day in 1949, sadly passed away in 2020, survived basically one of the more unsurvivable injuries of a basilar skull fracture that he suffered in Talladega in 1993. His part of the crash didn't look bad because everybody else was watching Jimmy Horton. But we're talking about Stanley Smith. Stanley was a short track racer from Alabama, came up, ran some cup races in his own team, and he was the original driver that brought interstate batteries into the Cup Series. So there you see the 92 Max, the red and the black. When I have those, I like to kind of show you both, just to show you that they are very, very similar. Just the black does have the foil lettering and borders versus just the printed. Then in 92, this picture would have been from 92 because it's a 93 card. A Maritron Batteries division of Interstate would sponsor him after Interstate went to Joe Gibbs. I think Stanley kind of thought that maybe Interstate was going to keep backing him. That's not the way it worked out, but Ameritron sponsored him. And then the car, this would be a 93 picture from 94 Max, but Stanley had the Cresto hand cleaner sponsorship, and this will probably talk about his accident a little bit. But he did lose, I I do want to say that he did lose, maybe not sight, but he lost like muscle and control of one eye somewhat. Did have some other injuries, and he did recover enough to go back to racing short tracks very, very briefly in the, I want to say, the mid to late 2000s to maybe early 2010s. But sadly, Stanley is no longer with us. And, the fact that the man survived basically an unsurvivable injury, it was just luck, because you had a few other drivers like Ernie Irvan and Rick Corelli also had the same injury, and they survived. So I think it's just one of those things. I don't like the idea of when it's your time, but it wasn't quite Stanley's day that day yet. And maybe NASCAR should have looked into it more. What caused the head injuries at that point, and then maybe 1994 with Neal, and obviously 2000 and 2001 with Petty and Irwin and Roper and Earnhardt and Alexander. Maybe those days don't happen. But anyway, thanks again for watching. Really, really do appreciate it. Like I say, I can't believe we've got basically 12 more weeks of this series, and then we'll be done. I mean, we probably have to go back to some set reviews and some other stuff, because I do want to keep some fresh and interesting and different content for everyone, because y'all seem to enjoy it. I always appreciate the support. So anyway, thanks again for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, and we will see you tomorrow.